Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I've been working at a popular home improvement chain for nearly a decade now, about 8 years to be precise. The first 7 were in Florida, before I moved up north to be with my best friend Sarah and her husband Tom. They had just told me they were expecting their first child, who would be my godchild. I transferred to a store in their area and hit the ground running. Initially, I worked in the garden department, just like at my previous store. However, due to staffing shortages, I found myself bouncing between departments. The catch? It wasn't full-time work. My old HR manager had dropped the ball, and this new store thought I wanted part-time hours. Having already relocated, I picked up a part-time overnight job at a local gym to make ends meet. I kept asking for full-time hours at the home improvement store, but never got a clear answer or any changes. A few months into this arrangement, my goddaughter Emma was born. Since I was living with Sarah and Tom during the COVID-19 pandemic, I spent a lot of time helping to raise Emma, and we became incredibly close. I would use my allotted time off to help look after her, which didn't seem to be an issue initially. About 6 months after the move, I had made a name for myself at the store. While I didn't have many close friends there, my coworkers respected my work ethic and willingness to lend a hand in any department. That's when Veronica, our new assistant manager, ASM, entered the picture. Veronica was abrasive and used to getting her way. The first I heard of her was when she fired a front desk employee named Lisa for wearing a jacket with a small Playboy logo. "You can't fire me for this," Lisa had protested. "It's barely visible," Veronica had sneered. "Company policy. No inappropriate logos. Pack your things." Several of us organized a walkout in protest. We managed to convince the store manager, Dave, to reverse Veronica's decision. This wasn't our first rodeo. We had done something similar when Veronica's predecessor made sexist comments about a cashier. Soon after, Mark, the ops manager, gave me a full-time position in receiving. My new supervisor, Greg, was, let's say, challenging to work with. We often butted heads, especially as Emma got older and I took on more babysitting duties while her parents worked and slept. I didn't mind it at all. I adored Emma and often shared stories and pictures with my coworkers. However, my higher-ups weren't thrilled about my family commitments. Greg was frustrated that I couldn't work overtime due to my second job or babysitting duties. "Come on, we need you here," Greg would grumble. "Can't someone else watch the kid?" I'd explain, "Greg, I'm the only one available. It's important to me." Not long after the second walkout, I caught wind of a nasty rumor circulating around the store. That Emma was actually my own daughter, conceived behind Tom's back. The source was unknown, but Veronica had made some disparaging remarks about men taking care of children in the past, so I had my suspicions. My holiday plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas 2023, requested well in advance, were canceled without explanation. I had never missed a major holiday since moving north, and I'd gotten the same days off the previous year before Veronica arrived. Strike one. Shortly after New Year's 2024, Greg tested positive for COVID-19, forcing me to self-isolate until I could get tested myself. During that week, as testing sites were swamped due to a new variant, I was constantly harassed by calls and texts from both management and Greg, pressuring me to find an at-home test and return to work ASAP. "We need you back here now," Veronica texted. "Find a test anywhere you can." I replied, "I'm trying, but everywhere is booked solid. I have to follow protocol." This put my friends, family, and roommates at risk, potentially disrupting their plans. Strike two. Thankfully, my test came back negative. A week later, the Northeast was hit by a severe snow and ice storm. I managed to make it to work in my four-wheel drive, but near the end of my shift, I learned that Tom had been injured and stranded in a car accident on the icy roads. I left to help them get home in their car to a service station. To complicate matters, they had lost power at home, leaving me as their only option with a vehicle and electricity. I had few sick hours left, but informed work that I'd be out due to a family emergency. For the next week, I called out each day citing an ongoing family emergency, with snow and ice still coating the streets and power outages persisting throughout the city. Every day, I received calls from management demanding I return to work. "Family emergency or not, we need you here," Veronica insisted over the phone. I tried to explain, "I understand, but I can't leave my family stranded without power or supplies. It's not safe for me to drive in these conditions either," she retorted. "That's not our problem. Figure it out or don't bother coming back." Returning would have risked my safety and left my family stranded at my apartment with no way to get supplies or return home once their power was restored. Strike three. I'd had enough. Early on a Sunday morning in February 2024, I walked into the store and left my resignation letter on the HR desk. I had made it effective immediately, as I live in an at-will state. Was it petty? Absolutely, and I'll own up to that. I had given 8 years of my life to this company and asked for very little in return. As I was leaving, I ran into Greg, who angrily asked if I was finally coming back to work. "Actually, Greg, I'm done. I just dropped off my resignation," I told him calmly. "You can't be serious," he sputtered. "We're already short-staffed." I simply shrugged and walked away, ignoring his protests. A few hours later, I received a text from Veronica that would set off an unexpected chain of events. "We'll see how long you can take care of your love child without us." Well, it seemed I had found my likely source for the rumor. Sarah and Tom had known about this gossip from the start. I never hid anything from them. They're my closest friends, and they've given me the greatest gift in Emma, whom they insist I call my niece because I'm family. The term love child felt like a slur against Emma, and neither I nor her parents were okay with that. Tom was furious when I showed him the text. "That's completely unacceptable," he fumed. "We need to take this higher up." Sarah agreed, adding, "This goes beyond workplace drama. It's affecting our family now." It was time to involve corporate HR. I began compiling evidence. Texts from Greg, call records, voicemails, and of course, Veronica's damning text message. If I was going to leave, I was at least going to push back against the team that had been so eager to target me. What happened next comes from friends still working at the store, so I can't verify every detail, but Veronica apparently dug herself into a deeper hole. The day after I quit, she called a meeting of management and supervisors where she announced that I had been fired for job abandonment and immorality. Last I checked, immorality isn't grounds for termination in American retail. To Greg's credit, he defended me to Veronica and was fired on the spot for his trouble. "You can't fire him for telling the truth," Greg had apparently said. Veronica's response was swift. "I can, and I just did. Anyone else want to challenge me?" The store's HR rep, Jason, who had received my resignation letter that morning, spoke up. Actually, he wasn't fired, he quit voluntarily. Veronica then attempted to fire Jason as well, right in front of the staff. From there, it spiraled out of control. According to my source, entire departments began to walk out or quit en masse, each with their own grievances against Veronica. The appliances team quit to a man. The garden department left with their manager to work for a competitor, a move that had been in the works for a while. The front desk staff walked out in protest when it came to light that Veronica had threatened and blackmailed several Muslim part-timers to remove their hijabs if they wanted more hours. "This is blatant discrimination," one of the Muslim employees had reportedly said during the walkout. Veronica's response was tone-deaf. "It's about maintaining a uniform appearance, nothing personal." The lumber department, Receiving's main partner, quit in solidarity. The pro desk joined the front desk protest when it was revealed that a Sikh employee had also been threatened over his turban. Both head cashiers quit, and the other trained cashiers walked out with the desk staff. Mark, the ops manager who had given me my full-time position, informed the district manager of the situation and quit outright before he arrived. He walked out alongside Jason from HR and Greg, my former supervisor. The last my source saw of Veronica was her sprinting to her car after hearing that the district staff was on their way. The store manager, Dave, was forced to shut down the store for the next 2 days. I've been in touch with other affected employees, and we're putting together all the evidence we've collected. Several families are considering legal action. I suspect the company will try to keep this quiet, but I never imagined it would escalate to this level. I now have a full-time position at the gym lined up, and I'm enjoying the extra sleep and time with my family. I've sworn off 56, 64-hour work weeks for good. I'll never set foot in that home improvement store again. I hope Veronica enjoyed her brief power trip because I doubt she'll ever be in a position of authority again, at least not in management. As I sit here with Emma on my lap, helping her with a puzzle, I can't help but feel grateful for how things turned out. It was a challenging experience, but it led me to prioritize what truly matters: family, integrity, and personal well-being. Sarah walks in, smiling at the scene. "You know," she says, "I'm glad you stood up for yourself, and for us." I nod, returning her smile. Me too. Sometimes you have to weather the storm to appreciate the calm that follows. The next one is an entitled people's story. I've always been a bit of a loner. Don't get me wrong, I like people well enough, but there's something about the peace and quiet of nature that just speaks to my soul. That's why, fresh out of college, I decided to buy a plot of land up in the mountains. It wasn't much, just 5 acres of rocky terrain with a view that could make you weep, but it was mine. For 10 long years, I poured my heart and soul into building my dream cabin. Every weekend and vacation day was spent up there, hammering, sawing, and slowly but surely turning my vision into reality. It wasn't easy. I'm no professional carpenter, and there were plenty of times I wanted to chuck it all and move back to the city, but I persevered. Finally, after a decade of blood, sweat, and more than a few tears, my cabin was complete. It wasn't anything fancy, just a cozy two-bedroom place with a big porch where I could sit and watch the sun set over the mountains. But it was mine, built with my own two hands, and I loved every imperfect inch of it. I was looking forward to spending my weekends up there, maybe even retiring there someday. But then, about 6 months ago, everything changed. It started with a letter in my mailbox. At first, I thought it was junk mail and almost tossed it, but something made me open it, and boy am I glad I did. It was from something called the Mountain Vista Homeowners Association. I'd never heard of them before, but the contents of that letter made my blood run cold. According to this homeowners association, my cabin was in violation of several of their rules. The color of my exterior paint wasn't approved. My porch railing didn't meet their standards, and apparently I needed to immediately remove the solar panels I'd installed on my roof because they were an eyesore. I was furious. Who did these people think they were? I'd never agreed to join any homeowners association. Hell, when I bought my land, there wasn't another house for miles around. But over the years, a few other cabins had sprung up in the area. Apparently, some of these new neighbors had decided to form an homeowners association and were now trying to force their rules on everyone else. I ignored the letter, figuring it was some kind of mistake. But a week later, another one arrived, this time threatening fines if I didn't comply. That's when I knew I had to take action. My first step was to call the number listed on the letter. A woman answered, identifying herself as Karen Johnson, the president of the Mountain Vista Homeowners Association. I tried to explain that there must be some misunderstanding, that I wasn't a member of their association. "Oh, but you are, dear," Karen said in a sickly sweet voice that set my teeth on edge. "All properties in this area are automatically part of the Homeowners Association. It's for the good of the community, you know." I felt my temper rising. "Look, I've owned this land for over a decade. I built my cabin with my own two hands. I never agreed to join any homeowners association." Karen's voice turned icy. "Well, I'm afraid that doesn't matter. The rules apply to everyone. We can't have people just doing whatever they want up here. It would ruin the aesthetic of the area." I hung up, my hands shaking with anger. This woman, this homeowners association, they had no right to tell me what to do with my own property. I decided it was time to get some legal advice. I made an appointment with a lawyer who specialized in property disputes. When I explained my situation, he nodded gravely. "Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon," he said. "Some homeowners associations can be very aggressive about expanding their territory. But the good news is, if you never agreed to join, they can't force you to comply with their rules." He advised me to send a certified letter to the Homeowners Association, formally stating that I was not a member and had no intention of joining. He also suggested I look into the Homeowners Association's formation documents and bylaws to see if they even had the authority to claim my property as part of their jurisdiction. Armed with this advice, I sent off the letter and started digging into the Homeowners Association's background. What I found was shocking. It turned out that Karen and a few of her cronies had indeed formed the Homeowners Association, but they had greatly exaggerated its scope. They claimed jurisdiction over a much larger area than they actually had the right to, including my property and several others. I shared this information with some of my neighbors, and it turned out I wasn't the only one being harassed by Karen and her Homeowners Association. Several others had received similar letters, and like me, they had no interest in joining. We decided to band together and fight back. We hired a lawyer as a group and filed a cease and desist order against the Homeowners Association. We also filed a complaint with the State Attorney General's office, alleging that Karen and her associates were engaging in fraudulent practices. The day we served Karen with the legal documents was one I'll never forget. I insisted on being there in person, wanting to see the look on her face. When she opened the door and saw me standing there with our lawyer, her smug expression faltered. "What's this?" she demanded, snatching the papers from our lawyer's hand. "This, Karen," I said, unable to keep the satisfaction out of my voice, "is us telling you to back off. You have no authority over my property or anyone else's who hasn't willingly joined your little club." Karen's face turned an interesting shade of purple. "You can't do this," she spluttered. "We're trying to maintain property values and community standards." Our lawyer stepped in smoothly. "Ma'am, you're welcome to maintain whatever standards you like for those who have willingly joined your homeowners association, but you have no right to force your rules on those who haven't. Furthermore, your claims about the extent of your homeowners association's jurisdiction appear to be fraudulent. I'd advise you to consult with your own attorney before taking any further action." Karen slammed the door in our faces, but I didn't care. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I could breathe again. The next few months were tense. Karen and her homeowners association buddies tried everything they could think of to pressure us into compliance. They sent more threatening letters. They tried to turn other neighbors against us. At one point, Karen even had the nerve to show up at my cabin with a clipboard, trying to document my violations. I caught her trespassing and calmly informed her that if she set foot on my property again, I'd have her arrested. The look on her face was priceless. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we had our day in court. Our lawyer presented a rock-solid case, showing how Karen and her associates had overstepped their authority and engaged in deceptive practices. We had testimonies from multiple property owners who had been harassed, documentation showing the true boundaries of the homeowners association's jurisdiction, and evidence of Karen's repeated trespassing and harassment. The judge listened to both sides, but it was clear from his expression that he wasn't buying what Karen was selling. When he delivered his verdict, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The court ruled that Karen's homeowners association had no authority over properties whose owners had not willingly joined. They were ordered to cease all attempts to enforce their rules on non-members immediately. Furthermore, Karen and her associates were fined for their fraudulent claims and deceptive practices. As we left the courthouse, I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for Karen. She stood on the steps looking shell-shocked as reporters peppered her with questions. But then I remembered all the stress and anger she'd caused over the past months, and my sympathy evaporated. I walked up to her, ignoring the cameras and microphones around us. "You know, Karen," I said quietly, "all of this could have been avoided if you just respected other people's right to live as they choose on their own property." She glared at me, but said nothing. I nodded and walked away, eager to get back to my cabin and enjoy the peace and quiet I'd fought so hard to protect. In the months since our court victory, things have calmed down considerably. Karen's Homeowners Association still exists, but it's been reduced to the few properties whose owners actually want to be part of it. The rest of us are free to live as we please, without fear of arbitrary rules or harassment. As for me, I'm sitting on my porch as I write this, watching the sun set over the mountains. My cabin might not meet Karen's standards with its mismatched paint and solar panels, but it's exactly how I want it. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most. I've learned a lot through this experience. I've learned the importance of standing up for your rights even when it's difficult. I've learned that there's strength in numbers, and that working together with your neighbors can accomplish amazing things. But most of all, I've learned to appreciate what I have even more. This cabin, this land, it's more than just property to me. It's a testament to a decade of hard work and determination. It's a sanctuary where I can be myself, free from the judgments and expectations of others. And now, after fighting off Karen and her homeowners association, it's also a symbol of victory. As I sit here watching the stars come out over the mountains, I feel a deep sense of peace. Whatever challenges may come in the future, I know I can face them. After all, I built this cabin with my own 2 hands, and with those same hands I defended it. That's something no homeowners association can ever take away from me. The next one is a petty revenge story. I have been working in a new career for a few years, previously a decade in hospitality. The new career is heavy industry with shift work alternating between day and night shifts. I have been getting along well with most people due to the charisma developed from being in restaurants and bars, apart from Dilbert, not real name. Dilbert has been working in this job for 25 plus years, does the bare minimum, tattletales, and is just a pain to work with. Our hours are 5 till 5, and a lot of the time we have to work past our finish time in the name of production. If we are ahead of our orders, we can leave early, along as the next crew can come in and start without having to clean up a mess or finish a task that will halt production. We had met our plan for the day, cleaned up, and left a job for the next crew to start that would not halt production. This day, Dilbert saw me leaving at 4:30 and called me over. I thought he was asking for an update on where everything was up to. He was not. He told me to go back and finish the task as he will always stay till 5 no matter how production is going. I argued that he will be okay as I have set everything up and all he has to do is push a button and sit to watch it for an hour. This went back and forward a bit, then I gave up and went back to work while the rest of my crew left for home, laughing. Dilbert didn't take over till 5:30. I know this doesn't sound that bad, but Dilbert never stays past 4, leaving the rest of his crew to pick up the slack. He leaves early because he has a shower on site before leaving for home. This is not an actual rule, just his justification. Petty revenge. We get our uniforms washed at work and placed onto storage shelves with a number assigned to our name. I was collecting mine when the idea hit. I looked through the public spreadsheet and found Dilbert's shelf number. For the past 2 years, I have been using a Sharpie in the corner of his chest pocket, staining it. Looks like a pen leak. pulling threads so buttons never last, and occasionally writing his neighbor's shelf's number so his uniform ends up in the wrong place. Dilbert is not allowed to order any more uniforms as he keeps blowing out his budget each quarter. I have occasionally worked extra shifts on his crew while he is away. His crewmates tell me that he gets in trouble for his uniform not being up to standard and how frustrated he is with his uniforms ending up in Craig's, shelf neighbor, uniforms. No one knows I'm the cause. In summary, Dilbert is a hypocrite, so he doesn't get nice uniforms. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Some months after my mum sold up and downsized, I got a letter from a debt collection agency saying I owed them £134 and some pence, including interest and fees. I had no idea what this was for, so phoned them. It was for the broadband service at my mum's old house, now sold, which had been cancelled a short time before she moved, along with the attached phone line. I explained that there must have been a mistake as the phone line and broadband were all in one package and I had cancelled it, all together at the same time since the house was sold. The query went back to the supplier. They called me and said they had been unable to cancel the broadband part of the service because the cancellation had not come in from the account holder. But I was the account holder? They said no, the account holder is Mr. my father's name. I explained that there really must have been a mix-up as he had died a few years earlier, and I took over control of the telephone line and broadband account, paying that single bill for my mother, along with some other regular bills since she no longer had my father's income to cover things. They insisted that they had to speak with the account holder and could no longer speak with me on the matter and refused to speak with me again. Despite all the collection letters and threats of legal action being taken against me, not my deceased dad, they wouldn't take no for an answer, so I drove to his grave, phoned them up and said, "Account holder is here. You can speak to him if you want." I left the mobile by the gravestone while I wandered around the quiet and pretty churchyard. I heard some irate voices at the end of the line, so picked up the phone and asked if they'd had any joy speaking with the account holder. An angry voice asked what was going on, so I explained where I was, and that I'd love to know if my dad had said anything to them since I had been unable to reach him under 6 feet of churchyard dirt since we buried him a couple of years earlier. Silence at the end of the phone. I was passed to a manager who apologized profusely and said they'd sort it all out at their end. A month or so later, the debt collection agency sent me a letter saying the matter had been resolved with no balance owing. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.